My name is Pastor Russ Porcella, and it's my privilege to be with Pastor Sunday from Kiev, Ukraine, and to inquire of him things that God has shown him about Russia and the former Soviet Union and the end-time calling upon that nation. So, Pastor Sunday, can you first tell me briefly about yourself and how it came that you are in the Ukraine pastoring the largest church in all of the former Soviet Union?
My name is Pastor Sunday Adelaja. I'm the pastor, the senior pastor of the Embassy of God Church in Kiev, Ukraine. Well, I've been in the country for the last 19 years. I came to the former Soviet Union in 1986 to study journalism, and then I had an encounter with Jesus for 3 days. God showed me the things that I'm doing right now. So I'm glad that I'm part of what God is doing in the former Soviet Union and especially in the Ukraine.
A prophecy of old that has been very impactful for me regarding Russia is one from Hudson Taylor. Can you tell me if you've heard of the Hudson Taylor prophecy, and from your perspective, what did Hudson Taylor say?
Oh yeah, I've read it several times. I believe it. We've prayed over it. And I believe Hudson Taylor was caught up in the spirit while he was visiting England, I suppose. And I was preaching on another topic, and God showed him some events that were supposed to happen this last century, including the second two world wars and the revolution in Russia, the darkness, and after which there will come a time of refreshment and not just a national revival in the former Soviet Union, but also a sweeping revival that will go to Europe and spread to the rest of the world. And we believe that strongly.
Pastor Sunday, you are a revelatory man in your own right, and can you tell me what God has shown you about Russia, the former Soviet Union, and the end-time call upon those nations?
Well, it is because of the calling of God and the revelation that God has given me about Russia, about Ukraine, that we actually started our church. There were two assignments that God gave me when I got to Ukraine. The first one is that God challenged me to believe Him, that to begin to build megachurch, that it is possible not just in the Western world but also in Eastern Europe. And the second assignment is that actually the Russians were called to win the world, but not for themselves and not for communism, but for Christ. And that was in them. But that instinct was manipulated and misunderstood by the ungodly people who were ruling Russia in the beginning of the last century, and they were trying to do that through communism. So God said and challenged me that I should raise up Russian people and a church that will be very missionary focused, mission focused, to raise up people of the former Soviet Union and send them for the last day's harvest before the coming of the Lord Jesus Christ, and especially to send them to the former countries where the Russians had attempted to send their, no, and not just attempted, but actually sent the weapons of mass destruction, especially to China and to the Arab world, so that we should prepare an army of Russians to those countries, because the end-time revival will affect those countries greatly. And that, instead of exporting communism to the rest of the world, that Russians will be instrumental in saving the world and gathering the last day's harvest. So that's exactly what our church is all about. That's what I believe God will be using Russians to do in the last days.
Bob Jones is a respected American prophet who has said that the great revival that's going to occur in the Russias is going to start in the Ukraine. So you've been pastoring in the Ukraine now for a number of years. Are there evidences that you see that in fact may be the truth, that it's going to start in the Ukraine?
Oh yeah. It's not just a possibility, it is already a reality. If you go to any part of the former Soviet Union, people will tell you for sure that Ukraine is not just the breadbasket of natural food, it is also the spiritual breadbasket of the former Soviet Union. In fact, some people will claim that 60 to 70% of all the pastors, successful pastors in Russia, actually come from Ukraine. And so it's the same in other countries of the former Soviet Union. God has already started using Ukraine to spark this revival. And right now, our church is regarded to be the single largest evangelical church in Europe. So if, you know, the country just attained independence in less than 15 years ago, and it's already boasting to have the largest evangelical church in Europe, that shows that there is a hand of God upon our country. I mean, we have Romania that is very close, Moldova, Georgia, Russia, Poland. These countries are also from communism, and they have about the same economic development level as Ukraine. So there is no reason why, apart from God, why Ukraine should be experiencing that kind of revival, and these countries are not experiencing the same thing. I mean, when you come to Kiev, I think we will have at least 10 churches with over 1,000 members just in the city of Kiev.
I've had the privilege of reading a book recently entitled The Prophetic History of the Ukraine, and it states that the man that founded the country, an apostle, Andrew, had some prophetic declarations concerning that area of the world, and that the great revival would start there. Can you tell me if you've heard of it and what you've heard?
From the Ukrainian perspective, Andrei Perazvani is actually supposed to be one of the 12 disciples of Jesus. They believe that the Apostle Andrew actually got to the Black Sea. And the Black Sea is very close, I mean, it's in the Ukraine, territory of Ukraine, and moved upward to the north, coming to Kiev. After walking all through the territory of Ukraine, put a staff in a spot in Kiev, on a mountain there, and said, from this height and from this place, the Spirit of the Lord will come down, and the Spirit of the Lord will spread to the rest of the world. And that that prophecy, everybody believes, is a legend. Every Ukrainian you ask believe it. So they have the symbol of Kiev is actually Apostle Andrew with the staff in his hand and with the beard. Yes, that's the symbol of Kiev. And they have a statue for him, a statue for him in the city of Kiev. Not just one, several.
Well, I understand that God has spoken to you specifically out of Isaiah regarding the Russia and the former Soviet Union. Can you tell me again briefly that?
Just like God has said that the last shall be the first. There was a time that God gave me a prophecy from the book of Isaiah, chapter 9, verses 1 to 3. That's where God was saying, talking about, you know, the line that was in darkness, and that was that will see great light, and the line that was depressed will be elevated. You know, we could quote that later on, but that is the word that God gave me for the former salvation, that the great darkness will become great light, and the humiliation will become elevation in the days to come.